Hello and welcome to Inside and Out with Patricia Stark. I am Patricia Stark. Joining me is my friend Lynn Cinetti. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning, everybody.
Well, today is everyone's opportunity to vent. We are talking about communication skills that other people possess or that they don't possess that drive you mad. What pet peeves do you have on how other people communicate, whether it is email, voicemail, in person, you name it, we're covering it. We want to hear from you. Please give us a call at 362-0013. You can email us at patricia@patriciastark.com. Lynn, I got to tell you, I posted this on Facebook last night. I have 6 pages of comments in front of me. People were loving to be able to have the chance to talk about what drives them crazy.
I think with all the different types of communication we have now, there's so many ways to people to screw up.
I think you're right. And we're going to cover a lot of them today. One of the first ones that I got as soon as I posted, and it was rapid fire. Every time I went on Facebook, there was another post, people commenting on each other's posts. It was really wonderful. Was not thinking before you're talking or asking a question. And what this person was saying was that they'll get people that will call up at their job and they'll formulate their question as they're asking it. Now, what's the better option here? How about think it through, think about exactly what you want to say before you get on that phone or before you walk up to someone with a question, because it is so frustrating to have someone look at you or talk to you and they're trying to figure it out as they're saying it.
Absolutely.
Another one that someone had said was in interview situations when they begin a statement by saying, look, they're saying it's delay and a distractor and it's not correct. You don't look at a statement, you listen. This is very much one that I hear a lot. People say, look, I can't look. I need to listen and hear you.
I think also, I understand that part, but it's also a little bit aggressive. To say,
yeah,
look,
it is.
That my immediate reaction would be somebody's going to tell me something that that they're angry about.
Yeah. And here's another one from Joanna. She said, when people call you and then they ask you to hold. That's great. Hey, how are you? Oh, could you hold on a second? Yeah, sure. I have nothing better to do. So
you called me.
You called me. That's a terrific one. Phoenix said, I don't like when you walk into a store and someone is on the phone or busy and they don't acknowledge you. And at the very least, either nod or indicate that they see you and that they'll get to you. This drives me personally crazy. How many times do you walk into a store and someone doesn't even acknowledge you? Or I'm thinking, man, I wish I was like The Secret Shopper or that Boss show where the boss goes undercover and walks in. Because if I saw my employees doing this, they would be gone.
I can't even believe when you go into a store that they are actually allowed to have their cell phones in their hands.
Yeah, exactly.
So that they're either, texting or it's by, it should be away in their bags.
Yeah, it's so true because that's why you're there. You're there to do customer service. You're there to interact with the customer, whatever it may be. And, it's not just about the people that are waiting on you. I think then that they were trained poorly, that no one sat them down and said, this is paramount. You must immediately acknowledge a customer when they come into your store or wherever it may be.
Right.
So another one was Sylvia saying taking a week to return emails or calls. Well, I guess it wasn't that important.
Well, sometimes they're not that important, though.
And it's true. It is true that it's not that important, but we don't want to ever make anybody feel that way.
That's true. Okay, I'll give you that.
You'll give me
I'll give you that one.
Because someone else, and I don't have it here because I have so many pages of things. Here it is. Melissa says, I hate when you're waiting for an answer from someone, and even if they don't have the answer, and they need the time, at least communicate that. Perhaps respond and say, hi, I don't have the answer for you, but I just wanted you to know that I haven't forgotten about you. It's just taking more time than I thought to gather all the info that you asked. Melissa, thank you so much for that because it's so true. I think that people feel like, well, I'm not ready yet. I don't have the answer that they need. It is perfectly acceptable to just give a call or an email and say, I want you to know I'm working on it. I don't have everything that I need yet, but I wanted to let you know I didn't forget about you.
That's good.
But I think people avoid that because they're afraid to.
Yeah.
They feel like, well, no, I have to, or they feel like they're lacking something or they failed in some way by not having it right away. But it is so much worse if you wait and you wait. It's almost like the analogy that I use when I talk to people about having to get up in front of a room. When I teach classes, I'll have 12 or 15 students there, and it's their turn to get up in front of the camera, in front of the group, and they wait, and I'm like, eventually you all do have to go. And the longer that you wait, it's kind of like if you right now took a bottle of water or a glass filled with water and you held your arm out straight and you just held it there for a while. It's pretty easy, right? But after a while, it's going to get heavier and heavier and heavier to the point where it's going to seem like a 20 or 25 pound dumbbell. And that's what happens when you wait and you procrastinate and you put off getting back to someone or raising your hand or getting up to speak or saying what's on your mind. The longer you wait, the worse and the heavier everything becomes.
True. Very true.
What do you got, Lynn? You got some emails there.
I have one from Rebecca. She says, people on public transportation talking on cell phones so loudly that it's difficult to enjoy reading a book. I think that's great.
I do too, because it's as if no one else is around you. Someone also sent me a clip. Chrissy sent me a clip that relates to that from Larry David. It's called Larry's Imaginary Cell Phone. You can see it, find it on YouTube. It says, Larry isn't impressed by the guy sitting next to him at the restaurant talking on the hands-free, so he decides to play at his own game. So Larry starts talking to an imaginary friend really loud so that the guy on the phone can't hear, and he's like, hold on a second, and then they get into this whole argument about what's more important, the guy on the phone or the imaginary friend. It's just rude. It's like, really, you're not going to be paying attention to people that are around you and that perhaps you're talking. I would be embarrassed. I don't want someone to hear my conversation.
People are not. They almost think. I almost think that they don't realize that they're out in public. Somebody just told me a story recently about how she was at a spin class. And it's a quiet, dark room, and you just spin and you spin. And some woman the entire time in the spin class was on the phone having a conversation. And people
She's an extremely important person.
And people were just so disturbed by it. But nobody said anything.
Well, see that, but that's then that's when we need a little bit of the mob mentality and the gang mentality, and we all need to say, "Excuse me, that is not acceptable." And something that relates to that, Paul wrote in and he said, "I noticed a guy walking in the same direction on the sidewalk as me in New York City, talking on his cell phone and weaving from the middle to the left and back to the middle. Others were coming in the opposite direction and didn't know which way to go. As I went past him on the left, we brushed because he weaved into me." As I thought that he might, but I guess it didn't, my time to pass wasn't good enough. Then I hear him say into the phone, "I can't wait to get out of this city where people cut in front of you while you're walking." I just had to stop and turn around to offer a response, since I think that's what he wanted, or else he wouldn't have said his comment loud enough for me to hear. And I told him, maybe you should consider not talking on the phone while walking, since it seems that you cannot do both at the same time.
That's good. That's very good.
So again, we are taking your calls at 362-0013 or WRCR.com, Patricia at patriciastark.com. What drives you crazy about people's communication skills? This can be family, friends, coworkers, your boss, whatever it may be. We want to hear about it. This is your opportunity to vent this morning. Lynn, what else you got?
I like this one a lot because I think it's very, very important. Ula says, it also confuses me when people say, to be honest with you. Does this mean they normally lie?
Yeah, I think so. When we teach public speaking and we teach people to go on the air, that's the one thing we'll say, never say, to be honest with you, because that always infers, well, then that means sometimes you're not honest. You're telling me right now you're going to be honest, but maybe you weren't before, maybe you're not going to be after. But right now, at least I know you're going to be honest. It's a horrible habit.
That's true. That's also like, let me to tell you the truth. Well,
same thing.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Patricia, I think we have a call.
Hey, good morning, and welcome to Inside and Out.
Good morning, Patricia. This is Sue.
Hi, Sue.
One of my pet peeves is reply all. They should eliminate the button.
Reply all, so that everyone gets to see your reply on the email chain?
Yes.
Well, now, there must be some cases where you want everybody to be in the loop. Explain what you mean, what the case is when you think you should do that.
Well, there are times when, it'll be an email to, even at work, a bunch of people responding about a date or something, and everybody on the list, they'll respond with very inane comments and hit reply all. It's like, I really don't care. I got my message. I don't need to know your response.
Yeah, and it's tough because I'm sure you're being inundated with so many emails, and you really want to have to just look at the ones that you really need the information. I think you bring up an excellent point. I think that you need to say, all right, this is on a need-to-know basis. Do all of these people that I'm hitting reply to really need to know my answer? And if the answer is no, then you should just hit reply.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your call. That was a great one. All right, another one that we have here is saying the words anyway. No, saying the word anyways. Like, well, anyways, Julianne says that drives me crazy. It's anyway. There's no S at the end of that. And this leads me into a lot of bad habits that people have. One personal one that drives me crazy is irregardless. Irregardless is not a word. It's regardless. I used to work with a gentleman whose name shall remain nameless. He was the nicest guy in the world, but that's how everybody mimicked him, or we could explain to people that that's who we were talking about. We go, irregardless, and everybody knew it was our friend. There's no I in that. It's just regardless. And we have a lot of bad habits like that I hear people say.
I think there's a bunch of them that we're mentioning about, like, a lot of people mention that. I hate when people say,
yes, we have talked about that a lot, and we've even talked about that on a couple of our shows. And after listening, I hear that we're not perfect with that either. I say it sometimes, you say it sometimes, my friend. I think when it is really bad is when it happens over and over and over again. I can give you a here and there, but if I hear it 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a conversation, I'm really paying attention to it. I get this CD every month with Success Magazine. It's a great magazine if you are in business or just want to be successful and have goals. It's a wonderful magazine, and every month they include a free CD that you can listen in your car with all people that have great information that can help you succeed in some way, shape, or form. And there was one gentleman who everyone would know his name. He's been on talk shows. He's had his own show. Very smart, very successful man. And I always looked up to him, and I never noticed it on any of his other programs or anything. In this 10-minute interview on just audio, and that's all I had to go on, and I started counting because it was that bad, and I started making little lines so I could mark how many times he said 45 times.
Wow.
45 times this man said, So it's the repetition. It's the reason when you look at scripts, when I've worked in the acting industry and I've seen and spoken with directors and producers, people don't write. The writers don't write in, like, and ahs and ums unless they want the character to seem unprepared, not confident, green, awkward, unsure of themselves. So we could be sending these messages and not even realize it, but has become so ingrained in our society. And unfortunately, a lot of younger people get the habit even worse. When I teach at colleges or I go and I speak to different organizations and I deal with people that are in their teens and 20s, every other word sometimes is like, like. And I don't think that they realize the impact that they leave behind when they have that kind of communication.
I agree, and I have to brag here for a second. My son recently went on an interview, and the woman had responded back in some regard to say thanks for meeting you, etc. And then she
that's okay. We'll give it to Lynn.
She referred to how she was impressed that he did not use a lot of likes, ums, and was able to communicate with her. And my husband and I were so thrilled by that, more than anything else, just because
that was the feedback that you got, and you know why she gave you that feedback, because it was probably so glaring and stood out so much that finally she interviewed someone who was not doing that.
That's probably true, and it was really great testament to him, and I was really thrilled.
Well, that's really wonderful. So another question here was a person that doesn't make eye contact. This is Sheila. She said, I cannot stand when a person doesn't make eye contact when you're talking to them. Someone who interrupts you while you're talking to them, and while you're walking, they take 2 steps ahead of you, and they're just not connecting with you. When we've talked about this many times before, if you're not making eye contact, you are missing out on half of your communication impact. People feel like you're not listening to them, you're hiding something, you're not feeling good about yourself. Whatever it may be, eye contact is paramount.
Totally paramount. To me, there's no way to have a conversation without somebody, unless, of course, you're on the telephone with them, if you're in the same room with them, you need to be looking at them.
Right. Sean says, I cannot stand single word responses to emails. Oh, Sean, I completely agree. It's like, really? Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to get back to me with a nice answer, a nice response. I think it's rude. I think it's short. You know, we're all busy. We all got a lot on our plates. But you send back just a one-word answer, unless it's a friend and you're just saying okay or whatever it may be. And I get that. But in a business situation or in a situation where you don't have a great established relationship with somebody, and I've had people send me back just a one-word answer, and I'm thinking, all right, how do I take this? And I get on the phone and I'm like, is there a problem? Are you unhappy about something? Were you short with me just now? Because you can't get tone from an email. And they'll be like, oh, no, I didn't mean it that way. I was just multitasking. I was just doing 5 different things. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, if I was a client or if I was somebody that could take this the wrong way, you could have really just dug your hole there. I mean, it's not a good thing. At least take the time to write a human sentence and let me feel like you care enough to give me a decent response.
You know, I think what happens is that people are getting confused with texting and emailing.
Right.
And, you know, texting, there's so many people will write back K or LOL or just because it's short, and you expect that more in a text, unless, of course, it's a business text, which is something that kind of frustrates me, frankly, is I would prefer emails through business than text, but occasionally it happens. But that's where the confusion comes in. Mm-hmm. And then when they get to an email, which to me is like writing a letter. You know, it's not just a short, brief,
it should be like writing a letter, but people
that's the way you should
let
use
all
email.
Of the rules go out the window because they're like, oh, it's just an email. And it really should be formulated like a letter. A short letter, you don't have to go on and on and on and on. And
yes.
Brief brevity is obviously key, and that's really important. So here's another one from Robin. She said, people who think you are in their head, who say she called me and wanted me to go there with her. Who is she and where the heck is she? Use a pronoun, name a place. I think what she's saying is that people who assume that you know who they are, assume that they're not giving you their name at the beginning of a message, or just don't make assumptions and assume that people know what you're talking about, because this could be very funny. What if you left this on someone's recorder and it wasn't the right person, or you made a mistake of who you called, or whatever it may be? I have a problem with people leaving voicemails and taking 20 minutes to get to the point and then leave their number. So if I don't get their number the first time at the end of that long-winded voicemail, I have to listen to it all over again. And that drives me crazy. What you need to do is you need to get used to bookending your voicemails. When I call, I'll say, hi, this is Patricia Stark. My number is 212-501-2013. Here's my message. Here's what I need you to know. Please give me a call back. Again, it's Patricia Stark, 212-501-2013. That's 212-501-2013. Most of the time, we are so comfortable and we know our phone number so well that we'll go 212-501-2013. And really, we're supposed to be able to decipher that? Or I'll have people that say their names so fast that I can't decipher it, and they'll only say it once.
That is something that really
if
makes
it's a
me
tough
annoyed.
name, you should spell it.
Yes.
You need to say it clearly up front. You need to leave your number up front clearly, perhaps twice in a row. Don't feel like it's overkill. Don't feel like it's redundant. People will appreciate that.
I totally agree with that one.
Yeah.
That is my pet peeve, is when people leave you a message and they're not clear what their name is.
Yeah.
And you put you in a terrible position. You need to call them back.
Hi, you called me?
Right.
Not sure who you are, though.
I'm sorry, I really didn't hear your name. Then sometimes I'll try to call ahead and ask the secretary, I'm calling to return a call to, but I'm not sure. Can you tell me your name? And I'm quickly writing it down.
Yeah.
You know, it's an awkward situation.
Yeah. And I think the same thing applies for emails. And I know that this is maybe more difficult if you're not someone who is in business, but every form of email program, for the most part, as far as I know, has a signature section where you can automatically set it up to have your name, your phone number, any contact information that you might want people to have, so that every time you send an email, it automatically is at the bottom of that email. Because I cannot say how many times I've gone through an email chain looking for someone's phone number so I can get back to them, or even just at the bottom of their email and it's not there, or they assume that you have it. Every email I send, even in a reply, even if it's a chain of replies, I make sure that if it's not auto-signaturing, I hit that so that the signature goes on there. So if they're somewhere and they need to be able to hyperlink to my number right away, or just in a touch of a scroll, get my contact information or find out how to reach me on Facebook or YouTube or wherever I want them to be able to get me, I'm going to have that at every single bottom of every email.
Yes, that's very important. And a lot of people, even in business, they do not have their full signature at all times.
Yeah, right. This is a great one from Brendan. He says, people who verbally use internet shorthand, it doesn't actually save time to say OMG rather than oh my God. Same amount of syllables after all. Also, people who say I feel that instead of I think that. This is really true. And I've been starting to hear this more and more. People verbally using shorthand from text. OMG. Really? That's like Valley Girl talk now when you say it out loud. Or LOL. You can say I'm laughing. Laugh out loud. Like we're talking now not only are we texting in Morse code, are we going to start talking in Morse code? It's really, really something that I'm seeing more and more of. Okay, so here's another one. Turnoffs. Being interrupted is one. Being unreliable is another, and making excuses and not taking responsibility. That's a good one. Sometimes,
heavy one.
You know what? I screwed up. I'm sorry. Whatever it may be, call out the white elephant in the room. We have to take personal responsibility for if we do screw up our communications, whether it's an email, a voicemail, a text, or whatever. Just get on the phone, respond to somebody. And there's so many times where, again, things can be taken the wrong way when we can't hear your intonation, your voice, the strength of your voice, the sound of whether you're saying something and you're feeling good or bad about it. So many things we can't figure out. So if you find that there's any miscommunication, anything that could have possibly been misunderstood, you need to get on the phone with somebody and have a human conversation. And if they took something the wrong way, you got to say, look, that wasn't my intention, and let's clear it up now. But if you don't follow up with these things and deal with a confrontational phone call or deal with something that you just are dreading, if you don't do it now, it gets worse and worse and snowballs.
I agree with you. And so let me ask you this, because you know how many people that is a very, very hard thing for them to do. Mm-hmm. It's not in their nature, not necessarily to apologize, but how to they're embarrassed. They feel, what's an easy way to approach something like that to somebody?
So if it's a phone call or if it's something in person, what I would do is I would write down your thoughts ahead of time. Get out a pen and paper, get out a pad, whatever you're going to do, and write it out what you want to say, and figure it out again ahead of time, which goes back to one of the other emails before that said people don't think it through. Think very clearly through what is it that you want to say? What is it that you want the other person to understand? What is the thing that you need to tackle, that you need to try to explain or ask for? Sometimes a confrontational phone call is asking for something that you feel you've earned or that you deserve or that you need, or trying to get somebody to understand things from your point of view. So you need to work out a game plan, and you need to write it out. And then you don't want to write it out necessarily verbatim, because then if you're on the phone with somebody and you start reading over your script, it becomes a script and it sounds scripted and it sounds robotic. So then once you write it out and you get all of your ideas down, then turn it into little bullet points in chronological order of how you want to say it. And rehearse it with somebody. You could practice on the phone with a friend. You could practice in person with somebody else. But you got to have a game plan and then work your game plan. And that will make you feel a lot better. And then you also have to just maybe do a little cheerleading and a little coaching in your own mind and say, I have the right to this. I have the right to my voice and to my opinion and my feelings about this. And even if you come across and you stumble a little bit or you still feel scared, it's okay to be human. And if the other person doesn't allow you that opportunity, too bad for them. You are allowed to be human and make mistakes, and you are also have just as right as anyone else to have a voice and an opinion and a point of view, and you have to own that.
That's great. And I knew that you could, because I think what happens is people, we don't have, generally, again, all these things that we're talking about is not necessarily people don't want to communicate well. They don't know how to communicate well.
Right.
So that's a very, very good guideline
Yeah.
to help people with a struggling situation.
Yeah, and it's true, and I think that you're right. I think that a lot of times when people's communication skills stink, or their manners, which are also a form of communication skills, I think that they're just so wrapped up in their own lives and in their own world, and they blank out and they don't realize how they're interacting with other people. I mean, this is a good one where if I walk into a door at a store or at a mall or wherever it may be, and someone doesn't hold the door for me, depending on my mood, I might say, "Hey, thanks so much, I appreciate it." And they'll quickly turn around and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I wasn't even thinking." I'll be like, "That's okay, I just was teasing you, I had to bring it up." And so a lot of times they don't even realize they're being rude. They don't even realize. And it's just that it's a shame. And you have to start paying attention and start saying to yourself, "Gee, what do I do? Am I being clear? Am I paying attention to how my communications might be being received in the world?" And some people might say, "I don't care," but you know what? If you don't care, other people aren't going to care. And you don't realize what an impact you have. It's a ripple effect, too. The way that we interact with people, the way that we communicate with people affects how then they communicate to the other person, how they feel about themselves and get on to the next person. And it really affects the world around us for our benefit, but for the benefit of other people. I mean, to be someone who really resonates with other people and communicates and cares and tries to make a connection, a lot more doors and a lot more opportunities open, whether it's just in life or business or whatever it may be.
Yes.
All right, so we have a few minutes left. Again, we are at 362-0013. If you have any questions or any comments or just want to vent about any communications that drive you insane. Some other ones here that we have that were sent in were, let's see.
I have one.
You have
here
one?
From,
Go ahead.
Joe. Joe says, when somebody insists they told you something and they didn't. How frustrating is that?
I told you. You didn't. I know that I would remember if you told me. My husband has a great technique for this, especially at work. Hopefully, well, he might do it with me, and I'm in trouble if he does, but I think that it's more at work. He either has a day timer or he has his tablet or whatever he's using now. And when someone tells him something or when he says something to somebody, he writes down the date, the time, where the conversation happened, and what was said and what was going to be done. So if he says to someone, "I told you this," and they say, "No, you didn't," he'll say, "Well, I have it right here. It was on this date at this time. This was what the discussion was. This is where we were, or we were on the phone, or whatever it may be." And the opposite is true. He'll write down, "This is when we discussed it. This is what we did. This is when I told you, and this is what you told me that you said you were going to do." And when you do that with people, they're like, "Oh, okay." How do you argue with that? It's documentation.
Documentation's very important.
So that's another good one. Okay, so here's another one. David says, "I would say the overuse of comfort words. What's really bothersome is when people try to carry a conversation using only keywords. You can tell that they are thinking of what to say next instead of actively listening to what you're saying. They're not fully or mentally present with you." That's a big one. You really have to be fully 100% present and mentally present with someone when you're having a discussion or a conversation. Because otherwise, you're going to miss stuff. You're going to sound stupid when you respond and you act like you were listening when you weren't listening. And another one is fully listening. If someone is talking to you and you're looking at your cell phone or at your computer as if something spectacular is about to happen when you're not really present with them, you're basically telling people that I have other things that are more important, or you're not 100% important to me at this moment. The most important thing that you can ever do is make people feel like right then and there, they're the most important person in the room or on the phone to you. Whether that's true or not, or whether you got to move on and you got other things doing, if you can master that in any moment of any conversation, whether it is in person or on the phone or wherever it may be, and you can make people feel like that just for that moment by listening, by being fully engaged, because so many people are not 100% present in most given moments. If you can master that, you will be amazed at how the difference is of what will happen.
Just a quick note, I actually was in an examination room with a doctor who ultimately said to me at some point, "Oh, excuse me, I'm just waiting for a text from my daughter," and she picked up the phone. I thought to myself, well, that's the last time I'll be coming back here. I'm thinking, really? I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I don't take my phone out when I'm in a doctor's office.
Yeah, really. Yeah. We got to make people remember not how they felt about you. People remember how you make them feel about themselves. And that is the key, my friend. So please join us again next week. We're actually going to have a couple of guests on our next Inside and Out radio show, helping us explain how can you have a more confident voice, a more dynamic voice, use your voice in better ways, and have a stronger voice. Again, whether it's over the phone, in person, on job interviews. Next time, it's all about having a great, powerful voice and owning your voice. Thank you so much for joining us on Inside and Out. I'm Patricia Stark.
And I'm Lynn Sabetti. Have a great day, everybody.
We'll see you next time.